Welcome back. This is Excel Module 2, Video 4. We're going to finish up here with getting our page ready to print. We're going to add some header and footer information to our workbook, and we're going to set the print area. So sometimes when you're printing Excel workbooks, they can be a little tricky. If I were to go to File, Print right now and just kind of show you what this would look like if I were to print this, you can see it's 4 pages. And it makes like relatively good sense, I guess. It kind of cuts off weird right here a little bit, so you can't really tell what data is on the 4th page. So what you can do is you can kind of set your print area and set your titles like across the top here. So for example, if you wanted Bristol Bay and your value store to print across the top of every single page, you could set your print titles to print across every page, no matter if it's the 1st page or the 4th page. And then you can kind of set manual page breaks where you can dictate where the page ends and cuts off and prints. So that's kind of what we're going to do now, is kind of setting up the print area. I feel like this is probably the most confusing for students to understand, because it's a little bit tricky to set these print areas, and sometimes my screen doesn't end up looking like other students' screen, and it's all kind of based on what printer you're using and kind of how it prints on that printer. So that's why you kind of have to use some of your own judgment here and set your own manual page breaks that make most sense for what you're seeing on your screen. So a manual page break will be set, and that's where the page will cut off. So that's where it will end, and then the next page will begin. So as you're kind of looking at your own file, if yours doesn't look exactly like mine does, it could be because of the printer that I'm using, or the printer that's set up with my computer is different than maybe the one that you have set up with your computer, or maybe you just don't even have a printer set up. So anyway, keep that in mind as we're kind of working through this last section. So the first thing that it wants us to do is set the print area. The easiest way to do this is to go to the Page Layout tab and open up the Page Setup dialog box. I like to just do it because these next 3 or 4 or 5 steps that we're going to complete can all be done by clicking this Page Setup dialog box and then going to the Sheet tab. And all of these are separate steps, but like I said, I just like to do it this way because they can all be done here in this box. So the first one is to set the print area. It tells you in the book to set A1 through E28 as one range for your print area, and then add a comma and add A29 through O45 as your second printable range. And the book directions tell you to add that information to your print area. So I just type that directly in, or you could highlight it. The next section tells us to add print titles. So we want rows 1 and 2 to repeat on every single page that we print, and we want columns A and B to repeat across every single page that we print. So that's going to basically mean that we're going to have the title Bristol Bay and your value store at the top of every single page that we print. So the way that you can have your rows repeat is to either click on and highlight the 2 rows, like just click on the 1 and 2 and highlight them, and they'll populate in here. And then click in the column section, and then again, just highlight where it's A and B up here across the top, just click and drag across, and you will see that they will populate in the columns to repeat section. You can also type it in, but the tricky part is if you type it in, you have to remember to add the $ before the 1 and the $ before the 2. So it has to be typed in exactly as you see it here on my screen if you type it in yourself. And those $ have to be before the letters and the numbers. And so if you're not sure, like if you don't see it on my screen and you're doing this on your own and you're not sure exactly what that means or what that looks like, it's almost easier just to highlight the 2 rows that it asks you to repeat, and then highlight the 2 columns that it asks you to repeat. And the book asks us to repeat rows 1 and 2, and it tells you to repeat columns A and B. So that's why I highlighted those 2 things. Another thing that the book asks us to do as we're formatting our print area is to change our left margin to 1. So I'm going to click on the Margins tab and just change the left to 1. Everything else stays at the default that it already is, so you don't need to change anything else. One other thing while we're kind of in this section is, I think that might be, let's scale the printout. So I think that's on the Page tab. And in the scaling section on the Page tab, it says in our directions, it asks you to scale it to 60% of its normal size. So yours might say 56% or something else right now. So adjust it to 60% of its normal size. And then once you have the Sheet tab information complete, the Margins tab information complete, and the Page tab information complete, then you can say OK. Now there's a couple of other things that we need to do. We are going to insert some breaks here so we can see what this looks like when it's going to print. And the easiest way to be able to see what it looks like when it prints is to change this to a different view. So if you go to the View tab and you go to Page Break Preview, that will kind of show you where the natural cutoffs are. So right now I have a cutoff right here between June and July, which makes sense. I have 3 pages. And then I have a cutoff here. So this would be on page 1, this information that you see here. Don't worry about the hashtags or the pound signs. It's the view that I'm in that's making them look like that. If I go back to normal view, those actually do show up. So you don't need to make changes for this. Page 2 is going to be this information, which makes sense, I think, because page 2 will cut off right in the middle of the year between June and July. And then over here, this is where it gets a little tricky. It's cutting off. This is a page break right here between page 3 and then the total section. I'm going to go ahead and grab the dotted line page break by just hovering over it. I'm going to drag it over to the gray space to the right and just let go, and it will remove that page break. So then it won't cut off the totals. Like the total will actually be on page 3. So where you have the thick lines are where the page breaks are going to be. This looks good for me. Now yours may not look exactly like this because, like I said, it depends on your printer settings and things like that. So what you can do is if it's cutting off in a weird spot, again, you can always just click and drag the page break off right into the gray space and it will remove it for you. And then it will reorganize based on the pages. You can also insert your own page breaks if you'd like. And the way that you insert your own page breaks is on the page layout tab, and you go to breaks and you say insert page break. Just make sure though, if you're formatting your own document and you're inserting your own page breaks, that you click where you want the page break to go. So if I wanted the page, that page break to come back between column N and O, that was just there, then I would need to click somewhere, anywhere in column O. I'll just click where it says top 3 sellers, and then I'll go ahead and insert that break. And you'll see it'll add that break right there back for you. So you can insert your own page breaks yourself to kind of break up your page where it makes most sense, to cut off when you're printing. Okay, now what we're going to do is we are going to add some headers and footers to this document. So very similar to how we did it in Microsoft Word, but the way that you get to headers and footers is you open up that same page setup dialog box that we just had open, and you click on the header footer tab. Now, we have to click, when you're adding a header and footer to Excel, you have to, if you want to put text in, like if you want to type in your last name, your first name, that type of information, you have to click custom header. And then it will open up this box that allows you to insert information in the left, center, and the right. And I think the book tells us specifically I'm going to actually cancel out of this and go back here. It does tell us to click where it says different first page because we want our first page header to be different than the rest of the other 2 pages in our document. So make sure you put a check mark next to that and then say custom header. And then you'll see you have 2 tabs. One says header for the entire document except for the first page, and then you have a tab that's a header just for the first page. So you put the information that you want to just appear on the first page under that tab. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to go ahead and insert our header, and then on the first page header we want to display our name in the left section. So your name would go here in the left section. In the center section, I'm just reading the directions here. The file name in the center section, and you can see you have some commands here across the top. You can insert a page number, just hover over these and it tells you what they mean. For the file name, you want to click the command that says insert file path. And even though it doesn't say the specific file name yet, when you close out, it will populate into your document the actual name of the file that you have saved. And then in the right section, it tells us to display the date. And there should be an option for a date as well. I just have to hover over it until I find it. I think it is the one that looks like a calendar. That would make most sense, wouldn't it? Okay, then you can say okay with that. Then we're going to, so our custom header is finished. Now we're going to click on custom footer. Oh, you know what? I'm not done with header. I'm going to go back to custom header. And I forgot I did the first page header, but then I didn't do the header for the rest of the document, which I'm not even sure if the directions ask us for a header for the rest of the document. Let me read first. So that's it. Yep. No header on the rest of the document, just on the first page. So you can go ahead and say okay in that. Then we're going to go ahead and edit our footer. So select custom footer. And for the footer, it's asking us to, for the first page of the footer only, so make sure you're on the correct tab, it wants us to enter the code page, and then basically we're inserting the page number. And that is in the center section of the footer. So if you just hover insert page number, or the first command for insert page number, and then also click the second command for insert number of pages, because what that will do is it will insert page number of, and then however many pages you have in the file. So that's why you want to click both of the options here. So first thing you click is insert page number. Second thing you click is insert number of pages. So that gives you both of those numbers, and then say okay there, and then you can say okay again. And I just want to go really quickly to file print, so you can kind of see what this is going to look like. Mine is 3 pages. Here's what we'll print on the first page, and you can see the information that we typed in the header and the footer is there. There's the second page with no header and footer because we only put the header and footer on the first page. And then there's the third page. And this is exactly how it would print. Nothing is cut off in wonky spaces, which I appreciate when I'm looking at people's Excel files, like when they don't cut off in the middle of a row or a column that is hard for me to follow. I feel like that's very helpful. You can go to the View tab and go back to Normal View if you want to look at it in normal view, kind of how we did it to start with. But this concludes, oh, one more thing. I forgot, I skipped this step too. It asks you to change the color of your tabs, of your sheet tabs. Super simple, right click on them, tab color is how you do that. And then the directions tell you which specific color to choose. I think they're different shades of brown, but that is how you change the tab color. So you can rename the tabs by clicking on them, and then also change the color of the tabs by right clicking on them. And this concludes our Excel Module 2 videos.